Alright, what do we have in the news this week? CDPR hires a bumbling idiot the PR manager, Elder Scrolls stuff, journalists proving why we hate them, all that and more on this week's Old Man Rages at the News for the 17th of November 2025. Before we dive into the news, if you like the content, hit the like and subscribe buttons and share the video. Kicking off this week, we have the biggest hiring mistake anyone can make. CD Projekt Red hired Naraya Lee, a raging activist, to be their community manager. Yep, as Pyro Nation pointed out, feedback will be filtered to fit her new agenda. The new community manager posts their opinions on about literally anything openly, and on top of that, gives their support for the Rolling Stones article about the harassment, stalking, and death threats female Twitch streamers face. Yes, they do face those problems, but for Naraya Lee to just outright say that women are not taken seriously is a straight up lie. Anyone who has been on the internet for more than 10 seconds would know that. I mean, we all know what happened at TwitchCon San Diego, right? How the community reacted? I'm sure you don't need to be reminded of what happened there. But anyways, back to the original tweet. If you look at the comments, you will even see a reminder that CDPR hired a Sweet Baby Ink Defender. Maybe people's fears will be alleviated because they hired Carol Coleman, a former Warhorse employee, to design the quests for The Witcher 4. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't put my money on it. I mean, they've already done some damage to their reputation with how they handled The Witcher 4, so... Well, anyways, only time will tell what will come of that. Moving on, Todd Howard, in his infinite wisdom, decided it would be a smart idea to say Elder Scrolls 6 is still a long ways off. Hell, at this pace we'll get GTA 6 before Elder Scrolls 6. In an interview with GQ, Todd said, and I quote, "I like to just announce stuff and release it. My perfect vision, and I'm not saying this is gonna happen, is that it's going to be a while and then one day the game will just appear." Not surprising on that front, considering the Oblivion remake was randomly dropped out of nowhere. And speaking of the Oblivion remake, when he was asked about the Shadow drop, he replied with, "You might say that was a test run. It worked out well." In other news, the devs of the cancelled Warhammer MMO respond to the studio closure. The developers talked about their time working on it, with one of them mentioning how the game had a two-person audio team that spent years working on game sound design. Oh brother, that would have turned out either great or disastrous. Then again, it's two people, so I think there will be consensus there. But anyways, the developer then added, "Honestly, devastated doesn't even begin to cover it." To top it all off, the lead UI designer, Will Austin, explained that the game is still under strict NDA, even though NetEase pulled the plug. Alright, 2 years of sound design down the drain. Who knows what concept art was shelved. I kinda wanna see what they were cooking. Sadly, until the NDA gets lifted, we'll never know. Now, this is where it should have ended originally, but sadly, Warhammer fans can't catch a break this week. Pirate Nation posted this tweet announcing that the Warhammer 40k Boltgun 2's Nira Veyrath is voiced by Alana Pierce. Now, that name might sound familiar to some people, but anyways, for the sake of piecing things together one step at a time, let's assume nobody knows who she is. So, I decided to look at the comments and found this reply from Botchoco. Trying to confirm the art theft led to an opinion piece on Reddit which not only contained proof that the art theft existed, but also contained other things. Like for example, this piece where she straight up lied, saying, "I was a writer on a AAA game at Sony Santa Monica for 4 straight years." So, we have confirmation that she claims she is a writer. Then a Twitter user mentioned her name isn't credited for God of War Ragnarok, where she tells the user to look again. Looking at the credits, because why the fuck not, I kinda know where this leads. And not to mention, I also brought up the credits just because. Looking at both writing lead and writers, you can see her name is nowhere to be found. However, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see that she is part of the accessibility consultants, not writers. And that's, kids, how we catch up around these parts. Cool, now that we've established she worked on the game, not as a writer, we can look more into what she actually did. This piece is straight up from Sony's interactive website, where it says they help developers understand the challenges for disabled people. Cool. Notice how it doesn't say she helped writers anywhere on the screen, right? Hell, her whole job was help developers create tools for disabled people. So yeah, now that we've established who's gonna be the main voice actress for the game, I'm hoping at least the gameplay is good. So far, the trailers look good, and I hope the game delivers, at the very least for the fans, because they do need a win here. Now, on to people with a public humiliation fetish. Eurogamer released their creator's review and gave it a 2 out of 5. Bitch, this game sold 4 million copies worldwide, but maybe this guy is on something? Spoiler alert! He's on delusions. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I don't exactly like extraction shooters either, but to give a game a 2 out of 5 is a crazy take, and all because of AI. Yes, this guy claims AI voices is a black mark against its reputation. And sure, you can hate AI, but according to Insider Gaming, the voice actors were paid for this. It wasn't just scraped off the internet like how most LLMs do. And real quick, this is the guy who also gave Concord a 3 out of 5. 1 star more than our creators. But anyways, let's have a look at the review. Right off the bat, it comes off as the dude really loving the game, and it goes on for like half of the article. But the moment it reaches the part about AI, it comes off as if it's the end of the world for him. He wrote, "While I'm deeply skeptical of AI use in game development, it's important to emphasize the nuance at play here. For starters, these two techniques are not the same. While Embark has further argued, less convincingly, that text-to-speech is different from generative AI tools like ChatGPT. And, alright, let's be real here. It's fine to not like AI, but removing so much of your score just because of text-to-speech, a technology that existed since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Hell, might have been earlier. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's just a bunch of bullshit." Earlier, he also mentioned that Arc creators did also use a learning algorithm for its Arc animations, but I personally was expecting that to eventually happen with how fast AI is being developed. He even called the tech highly realistic, but couldn't call it anything better than interesting technology. Oh brother. It just shows that his only issue with AI is the fact that it has text-to-speech and that LLMs might be close to replacing his job. Who knows? Maybe he'll go on Twitter, or in this case Blue Sky, and go, "They took our jobs!" But that's not the only case where game journalists, and I'm using that term loosely when it comes to these folks, to publicly humiliate themselves. IGN gave Where Winds Meet a 6 out of 10. As of writing, the game isn't released, however, next week we'll look at the stats and see players' reactions. Now, their TLDR review is, and I quote, "Where Winds Meet has a great understanding of what makes wuxia such a compelling genre, but its attempt to shove so many different things into one game only ensures that none of those elements reach their full potential." Ugh, I'm already dreading reading the review if that's the TLDR. One of the first major points they write about is voices suddenly being cut off. And yes, I will agree with them. If the voices suddenly disappear, it's gonna be jarring. Anyone expecting this type of bug will realize how problematic that can be to have someone talking and the next moment, the sound of silence. Then the next point is ability chaining and buff management makes combat feel much more like an MMO than an action game. I'm gonna be bringing this up a second week in a row, right? Hey, you know what? I'm doing it. Let's do this. So you're saying the combo system and the old trigger from the Devil May Cry series also makes an MMO. Is that it? Jeez. I mean, more than anything, their comment sells me on the game, but it feels disingenuous at best for them to write this piece. I think the flaws of this amalgam is most evident against bosses, where things really just get reduced down to a rinse-repeat cycle of parrying and dodging attacks, counter-attacking, avoiding big telegraphed blows, and so on. That's the gameplay loop, you stinking animal. You do 4 or 5 things over and over again until you stop playing the game or play a different game. Hell, prime example will be Dishonored here. You first look at your surroundings, then you stealthily take out your targets, get clues to progress the story, rinse and repeat. Hell, if you're more of a chaotic person, you take a look at your surroundings, proceed to massacre everybody in the vicinity, then get clues to progress the story. Again, rinse and repeat. Oh, brother. That's just gameplay loops in general, my guy. For a boss variety, that's down to personal preferences, so I'm not gonna criticize them for that. Hell, I've been known to bash my head against the wall on bosses that I'm not supposed to be able to beat for an unhealthy amount of time, mainly because I want to prove a point. But lastly, I'm gonna look at their last point, and this gem of a person wrote, gliding across the windy shores, rolling hills, craggy mountains, and bustling towns of the Jiangsu is a breezy experience when your generous triple jump and wall running abilities actually work. But during every play session, at inexplicable intervals of time, these features would inevitably stop working entirely, only to be fixed when I log out and log back into the client. I mean, yeah, fair enough, if it's still bugged on launch, then yeah, that will take away points, so I tested it myself and apparently it's fixed. Oh boy. Now, it's fair to criticize NPC party being absolute dog shit, but that's kind of why I do my best to avoid AI party members anytime I can. They're usually set up in a way where they do bare minimum, and that ain't what I'm looking for, Chief. Moving on, Take-Two CEO finally admitted that Borderlands 4 sales were not as great as expected. I know, shocker. The CEO, Strauss Zelnick, said in an interview with the Game Business, and I quote, "The critical acclaim was superb and we're really happy with the release." Sure, buddy, it's sitting at mixed reviews on Steam. Really was acclaimed. Oh wait, we're referring to game journalists licking your boots hoping for more access to your future products acclaimed, or were you actually looking for, actual players liking it? Hit me up when you have the answer to that. Now, where credit is due, he does address the Steam release, saying, equally as you know, there were some challenges with the Steam release. Gearbox has been addressing those challenges and will continue to do so. So in terms of units sold out of the gate, the numbers were a little softer than we would have liked. In the fullness of time, we think it's going to do great. What a way to deflect. If it was just the Steam version, then you wouldn't have delayed the Switch 2 version of the game now, would you? I didn't even trust the guy who wrote the article because he also wrote the review for the game and gave it a 82 out of 100, despite the performance issues and UI. I mean, I'm gonna say it, if it can't run well without frame gen, then it doesn't deserve a good score. Prove me wrong. And now for something brain-breaking. Clair Obscur is not part of the Grammy nominations for soundtrack. The nominees for this year are Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora's DLC, Helldivers 2, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and somehow Star Wars Outlaws DLC got in there. Oh yeah, and Sword of the Sea. Hell, that lineup is such a joke that even Games Radar pointed out how Expedition 33 is topping Billboard classical charts for 10 entire weeks. Jeez. Talk about being paid actors over there. And apparently I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Under Genki's tweet, another user mentioned how this is basically a Disney list and not a game list, cause all of the nominations have a connection to Disney either due to them owning the IP or some other forms of connection there. Hell, let's not forget that Helldivers 2 was released in 2024, and this is supposed to be for 2025. Consistency not found. Next! Speaking of consistency, it's not looking good for Bungie because Sony said they haven't brought in as much money yet as they thought they would. Sony said it had recorded a 31.5 billion yen, or roughly around $204 million, impairment charge as a result of Destiny 2's underperformance, which is significant enough to drag down profits. Oh boy. Sony's chief financial officer Lin Tao expanded on the issue in an investor-related financial call, saying, regarding Destiny 2, partially due to the changes in the competitive environment, the level of sales and user engagement have not reached the expectation we had at the time of acquisition of Bungie. While we will continue to make improvements, we downwardly revised the business projection for the time being and recorded an impairment loss against a portion of the assets at Bungie. Oh boy, I wonder if they'll still insist on committing to live services with all that in mind. And continuing the trend of poor financial choices, Ubisoft has delayed its earnings report and halted share trading minutes before release. Even Insider Gaming is taking potshots by writing, Ubisoft is no longer delaying its games, now it's delaying its earning reports. Minutes before Ubisoft was scheduled to release their financial earnings, they announced they would postpone it, and not only that, they also requested Euronext to halt trading of company shares. This is not looking good for Mr. We won the battle against Backlash. Maybe now Ubisoft execs can get used to not having a company to work for, just as he told us to get used to not owning our games. Alright, on a serious note, this screams of the company being in a bad financial state. When looking at other companies that froze the trading of their stocks and delayed earnings report, a surprisingly large amount of them declared bankruptcy. Let that sink in. Moving on, turns out Square Enix laid off even more employees, one of them being the narrative designer, Rhiannon Gordon-Murphy, who previously worked on Life is Strange. She is part of an organization called Limit Break, and if you have sexism on your bingo cards, you can scratch that off, because that organization hates straight white men. Not to even mention that they had membership programs that cost money, because how else are you gonna milk the gullible? To top it all off, the chief publishing officer and head of Western branch is leaving company. He says he is resigning, so it's up to you if you believe that or if he was fired. And just to add something on a related level, normally the C-suite executives don't get fired unless they almost sink the company single-handedly. But anyways, another person that bit the bullet is the global campaign and senior marketing manager Sandra Shah, who, fun fact, is an ambassador for women in games. A few more notable mentions are Nirele, a marketing manager who worked on Dragon Quest III HD Remaster, who said, "Being a person of color and a woman in the industry, I feel it's important to represent my heritage and make my voice heard." And Yusuke Haraguchi, who got laid off as well, who had an interview, but I'll shoot straight. I don't trust Google Translate as far as I can throw it. So if you know Japanese, go ahead, read the statement for yourself. Additionally, Trudy Gaziano, the senior HR generalist who implemented DEI initiatives to support inclusivity programs, culture initiatives, and belonging strategies, also got fired. Reunion here mentions that she is not the one implementing them, but she could have been hired by the company to create the initiatives. And I would say it ends there, but all these people you see on the screen are also getting fired. It's an absolute bloodbath for Western Square Enix jobs. Now if only they could fire their ethics department. Man can dream, can't he? Now, a quick one for y'all. Naughty Dog decided to censor the trans flag on the Director of Communications t-shirt, making the whole image look worse than it actually is. Now, why did they have to censor the flag? Why didn't I just ask her to wear a different shirt or, put on some game merch or something? It's not like these offices don't have that on hand. Moving on, a Polish politician called the GTA 6 delay a disturbing matter. Oh, what has this world come to when the delay of a game is causing politicians to talk about it? Anyways, during a session of the parliament, a member of the Quinn, I have no idea how you even spell that, KWIN, opposition party, spoke about GTA 6 and said, as part of my parliamentary statement, I wanted to inform you about a very disturbing matter. An hour ago, Rockstar Games announced that the release of GTA 6 will be postponed until next year. This is a huge scandal. Frankly, if people don't take to the streets after something like this, I don't know what will happen. And just left after saying all of that. I mean, the man has priorities, right? And I can respect that. So, rioting because of a game delay? Now, I have an idea where this can happen. I know what game will have that effect if it gets delayed. Or, actually scratch that. The community for Half-Life is just gonna be like, oh, you need time to get that sorted out? We waited, since 2007? You can take a couple more decades, Anyways, another person from a different party echoed the same statement, saying, I respect such statements, Representative. I hope the add-on for Bannerlord doesn't get delayed any further. Alright, I'm not sure if I can... you know what? Screw it, I'll say it. These guys have their priorities straight. Screw politics, game! And in other news, it's official. Ghost of Yotei sold 3.3 million copies. It took them 32 days to hit that number, while its predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima, as shown in Sony's own reports, hit 2.4 million copies in 3 days. Now, it probably did recoup its cost, considering it was sold for a higher price while the development costs were low. But did it really make as much money as their other franchises? I doubt it. And to pour more salt in the wound, Push Square made a poll and people voted on it, preferring Tsushima over Yotei, with 24% of the voters liking Tsushima more than Yotei and 21% liking Tsushima a lot more than Yotei, even though Yotei is supposed to play better than Tsushima. Even the voters agreed on that in general. And the general consensus around the two games is that Tsushima had the better story, while Yotei had the better gameplay. Moving on with a fun fact for everyone, specifically everyone who wanted to play Black Ops 7's campaign. It's online only! Thanks, Activision! Not only that, but if you AFK, it will kick you out. Oh boy, Activision! Take my non-existent money! Oh wait, I haven't bought it. I'm not buying it. So yeah, get wrecked! But anyways, on a serious note, Call of Duty Story is traditionally offered as a solo game mode. However, this time it turned into online only with co-op that supports 4 players. But the downside is there are no AI companions to help you if you play solo and you need to do missions designed for multiplayer. All by yourself, mind you. Probably the worst offender of all of that is the lack of checkpoints and the preset difficulty. This has resulted in the campaign sitting at mixed reviews with 746,000 reviews and 58.5% on Steam. The multiplayer does seem to consistently sit around 75 to 85k from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 4 in the morning. That's all UTC time, by the way. And yes, I'll admit that Blizzard has their own launcher and players could be playing somewhere else. But Steam is the only reliable data we currently have. Considering PSN profile does sync up to your profile on the PlayStation Network if you've created an account for it. Most people do not. The people that do that on the PlayStation profile, and I'll be the first to admit it, are generally the more hardcore gamers. But anyways, those are the numbers for the PlayStation profile as well. And ultimately, I can't wait to see either Activision or Microsoft make a statement about the sales, especially since we can only speculate with the available data. And last but not least, Valve does nothing and wins. Not only that, but when they do something, they win even harder. This week, Valve were on a winning streak. If you've been on the internet recently, you would have found that Valve released new hardware. Video announcing the hardware has 3.6 million views. Now, if you want a deeper dive into the tech side itself, take a look at Gamers Nexus's video. But the gist of it, they released a Steam controller that even works for the Steam Deck. They released also a new VR headset and something game-breaking. Thanks, Steve, for all your hard work. Now, I mentioned something game-breaking. It's a cube, or as they named it, the Steam Machine, where you can access your own library, and they advertised that it has 6 times the horsepower of the Steam Deck. And the thing I forgot to mention about the VR headset is that it's wireless and can handle both VR and non-VR games. Think of it for the non-VR games as having a actual TV or a monitor in front of your eyes. Hell, even Phil Spencer welcomed the additions because it reflects on the core values that have guided Xbox's vision from the start. And in case you've been living under a rock, he is the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, aka Xbox. Now, this blew up the Half-Life Reddit community, with one editor putting the Half-Life colors and logo on the cube, another giving the Half-Life 3 hopium throughout the years and pulling a page straight out of the GTA fans and going insane over subliminal teases done by Valve. Hopium. I mean, personally speaking, this is a tragicomedy. Yes, that is a word. Prove me wrong. I dare you. On one hand, I can't help but root that Valve will finally give them some good news. On the other, the memes are funny as all hell. Additionally, Valve got 2 easy dubs this week because they saved a hacked CS2 account that had over $300,000 worth of rare stickers. That account belonged to Hawkeye337 and he got blackmailed by the hacker demanding payment to a crypto wallet. However, the hacker got impatient and applied the entire set of stickers onto a default set of gear and scrapped them, meaning the changes are permanent and the user cannot retrieve them. Thankfully, Valve stepped in and restored all the stickers to the account a few hours later. The second dub is them explaining why Steam Deck 2 isn't coming out yet. Valve software engineer Pierre-Luc Griffiths, I hope I pronounced that right, said in an interview, "We're not interested in getting to a point where it's 20 or 30 or even 50% more performance at the same battery life. We want something a little bit more demarcated than that. So we've been working back from silicon advancements and architectural improvements, and I think we have a pretty good idea of what the next version of Steam Deck is going to be. But right now, there are no offerings in the landscape that we think would truly be a next-gen performance Steam Deck." That's how you show that you truly care about your consumers. Take notes, people. That's how you get loyalty. And on that note, that'll be all for this week. Again, if you like the content, hit the like and subscribe buttons, share the video, and I'll see you next time.